second race of the weekend at Snetterton for the Alfa Romeos sees Graham Seeger and Simon McPhee on the front row of the grid. Then Ron Davidson and Paul Webster ahead of Ian Brookfield, Paul Plant and Chris McPhee at the back of the top half of the field. Then the Twin Spark cars headed by Tom Hill and Andrew Bourke ahead of Simon Cresswell and Richard Ford. Then Michael Tiedemann and Nick Anderson ahead of Andy Inman and Jeremy Chilton. Then John Griffiths, Louise West, Dave Messenger and Geffen Llewellyn round out the 19-car entry for our second race of the weekend here in Norfolk. So the cars making their way around on the formation lap. Now they're formed up on the grid as normal. The modified Power Trophy and Invitation class start first. Red lights go out. And it's a good start from the front row of the grid. And I think initially, incredibly, Simon McPhee gets a better launch from the front row than Graham Seeger does. But now it's three abreast down towards Ritchie's. And on the outside, look at the start that Paul Webster's got. Turning into Ritchie's for the first time. And Webster has the whole shot. So Webster into the lead from Graham Seeger in second place. Simon McPhee holds on to third ahead of the Paul Plant 156. Meanwhile, on board with Dave Messenger as the Twin Spark race kicks off behind them. Charging down towards Ritchie's then. 2 by 2 into the right-hander. Just at the head of the field, I can see Andrew Bourke has got the lead from Tom Hill in second place, and Simon Cresswell looks to be in P3. So down towards Palmer for the first time, out of the left-hander. This is now the Paul Webster 156 holding on to Graham Seeger in second place. Then we have Paul Plant in third. The two Puntos nose to tail in fourth and fifth now, as Paul Plant has displaced the yellow-wheeled white number 21. And it's Simon ahead of Chris this time. Ron Davidson in that 164 with the brand new V6 engine, and then Ian Brookfield again in the 155. Meanwhile, here are our Twin Spark cars, and as we said, it is Bourke from Hill, from Cresswell, then from Richard Ford. That's your top four in the class as they head through left-hander at Hamilton, up towards Oggies for the first time. Tom Hill, number one, looking to try and defend his title this year. And remember, he came into the weekend in third place, I think before dropped scores, on 106 points, and he had a deficit of about 39 points. Andrew Bourke, who currently leads the race directly in front of him. A little wide from Simon Cresswell, pushing a little bit too hard on this first lap, but maintaining position and momentum on fourth placed Richard Ford. And just there you can see the purple car at the edge of shot, and in the back of the view, that is Andy Inman. A great start from him to be up in P5. He's holding off Michael Tiedemann on the recovery trail after making contact with Dave Messenger in race 1, which put Messenger out on the spot and pushed Tiedemann down to P10, where he spent the rest of the race battling with Inman and also with Nick Anderson and Jeremy Chilton. Through the bomb hole for the first time, Cresswell finding his form again as he decides to pull a small gap on Richard Ford in third place. Meanwhile, the overall leaders are already on the pit straight onto lap 2. And it's Graham Seeger now that's taken the lead from Paul Webster in second place. Then it's Paul Plant in third. The Puntos of the McPhee brothers, with Chris now ahead of Simon. So the charcoal grey number 22 car of Chris McPhee ahead of brother Simon. That could be a good battle all the way to the flag. Here's Paul Webster then on board in the number 66 Power Trophy Alfa 156. Started the first race from the pit lane, but managed to get out on the grid, and a good start has seen him up in P2 at the moment, and looking in his mirrors, because I'm sure he's wondering where fellow 156 driver in the Power Trophy class, Paul Plant, is. He's looking again, he's not comfortable just yet. He's going to the middle of the track, so he's having to try and defend now down towards the hairpin, so potentially there could be an attack here. Slightly deeper on the brakes. We go back to our dueling McPhee brothers. Chris from Simon. Chris, of course, a double winner at Capel Park earlier in the year, but of course a circuit that doesn't really quite suit the Puntos here. They lack the straight line speed to keep with the faster cars, but it's in the corners where they make it up. And we see Simon in a brand new car, because usually his car is exactly the same colour as brother Chris, but a all-white car for this occasion, so looking fairly evenly matched. And they are in fact the same car, because the car that Chris drove was a slightly facelifted version of the car that Simon had, but of course they're both with the same version of that car, if you like. And that's set to be a very good inter-sibling rivalry, possibly all the way through the race. Now then, change for second place in front, because that's Paul Plant powering past Paul Webster for second place and the lead of the Power Trophy class. So that was a very key move that's happened there. And also in the mix appears to be Ron Davidson. He's third in class at the moment, as the two McPhee brothers going into combat again. I'm not sure Simon McPhee wants to be in second place to his brother, but making a mistake like that certainly won't help matters. As Simon McPhee runs wide on the exit of the bomb hole, carrying a little bit too much speed behind brother Chris, trying to match his pace, but somehow it hasn't actually hurt his pace too much, or his gap, because he's remained in touching distance to Chris, as they three-wheel their way through the left-hander at Murray's. But so far, Chris has the advantage and the momentum. So, side by side again for second place in the Power Trophy. Paul Plant has the inside line and gets his nose in front as they turn through Ritchie's once again. So, Paul Plant retakes the Power Trophy lead from the number 66 of Paul Webster. And now this is the view that Paul has, staring at the back of the black 156 from Paul Plant. So, through the apex of Wilson, named after the late Justin Wilson. It was called the Montreal hairpin, named after the same hairpin that's very similar on the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. But after the tragic passing of Justin Wilson, it was fitting of Jonathan Palmer, the owner of Motorsport Vision, and indeed in the process of Snetterton Circuit, to rename the corner in Justin's honour. It's a fitting tribute as they come into Agostini's, named after Giacomo Agostini, legendary two-wheeled motorcycle racer, many multiple world titles. And into Hamilton's, named after, guess who? Lewis Hamilton. Now then, back with our twin sparks. They're chasing after Ian Brookfield in the 155, but it's still Andrew Bork that leads the way from Tom Hill in second place as they turn their way into Agostini once more. Andrew Bork looking for a second-class win. And those, that wasn't brake lights, that was a flash of the headlights, in fact, from Tom Hill, asking effectively Andrew Bork to get on with it, but he won't be helped by the fact that he got bulked by Ian Brookfield, who's keeping to the inside line. Now, either that's him just getting out of the way of the faster twin spark cars, or that's a technical problem for the 155. But even so, Andrew Bork was fractions away from losing the lead, but somehow he managed to gather it back up and continue on his way. And I potentially think that that was just Ian Brookfield keeping out of the way, not wanting to get too involved in the Power Trophy battle, as this scrap for the lead in the class continues to go on. Paul Plant looks as though he's got a slight advantage in the corners, but again, it's Paul Webster's car probably that little bit faster on the straights. Through the long, long right-hander of Coram, you're basically trail braking through that corner. Get it slowed up, and then flick left through Murray's, and then back on the power again. And on the straight, you can see that, yes, Paul Webster's car is slightly faster in a straight line. I think, is that either Paul Plant braking or putting his headlights on, one of the two. But into Ritchie's corner, and Webster does manage to claw back a gap on the straights. But in the corners, Plant's car just seems that little bit more, well, planted, if you like. No pun intended. Back and forth with Dave Messenger, chasing after Andy Inman. He's back down in about 6th position now, so they head into the braking zone. Down a couple of gears, flick left for Murray's over the curb. Good bit of pace there from Dave Messenger. Caught up a few car lengths on Andy Inman through that apex. Back into 4th gear. Very relaxed behind the wheel is Dave Messenger. He's done this so many times before. He knows the drill. As we look back to the Wilson hairpin, and a duel for the lead in the twin spark category. And also we see there in the background, we saw Richard Ford going very deep on the outside, trying to pass Simon Cresswell for 3rd place. As the twin spark leaders continue on nose to tail. Andrew Bork ahead of Tom Hill. There's Ron Davidson, not exactly on the same pace he'd like. In fact, is there a little bit of smoke or steam coming out of the bottom of that car? So possibly all is not well with the number 92 164. As they head back into Agostini's, and again, Bork is not comfortable taking the racing line. He has to go defensive to force Tom Hill's hand on the exit of the corner, and again he flashes the headlights. He wants to try and distract Andrew Bork and find a way through. Turning through Hamilton's, very tricky left-hander. Up towards Oggy's, opens out on the exit. Tom Hill feeling a little bit more confident under brakes. As I think, is that car off the road? I think it might be Ron Davidson we saw there just off the road. So Ron Davidson, if he's had a problem, has possibly spun on his own fluid or his own oil. But there was a car up against the barriers there, and I think that looked to be like the bright orange 164 of Power Trophy driver Ron Davidson. So didn't look as though it was a big accident, simply maybe the rears locked up or he backed it into the tyres. If that was the case, unfortunately, that's his weekend done prematurely. So, in fact, there he is in the background, the 164. You can see it at the top of the shot, the orange car. So either he spun or has managed to gather it back up again. Here's Simon Cresswell in third place, holding firm on the final podium spot for the moment in the Twin Spark Cup. The Australian trying to keep both Bork and Hill in sight. Then it's Richard Ford in fourth place, the red car with the blue roof. And there is Tom Hill, number one, trying to keep in touch with Bork. Bork's come moving around as they head through Coram and then through Murray's, the very tight left-hander, back onto the pit straight to end another lap here on the 300 circuit at Snetterton. May not have been the brightest of conditions, but it certainly kept dry. There was a tiny spit of rain earlier on. Meanwhile, Graham Seeger, he's not pulling away too much as he did in race one, because Paul Plant and Paul Webster, despite the fact they are battling pretty hard, are still maintaining a decent enough gap, and they're just about keeping Graham Seeger in touch. So this is, of course, for a very fiercely contested Power Trophy victory. So as they try and chase after Graham Seeger as best they can, Paul Webster turns his way through Hamilton's. There's Seeger's car, the black dot in the distance. But immediately the car in front is Paul Plant, who he has to try and keep hold of. Now then, we're coming onto a section of the circuit where Paul Webster's car should be superior, because of course we know his car is better in a straight line with a little bit more power. Plant's car is better in the corners, so let's see what the advantage is here then. Up another gear in the slipstream. He's closing all the time, moves out to the driver's right of Paul Plant, up towards Brundle and Nelson. He's not far enough alongside to make an attack, so he'll sit back, get on the brakes a little bit earlier and try and carry more momentum and speed off the corner. But it seems as though the cornering prowess of that number 20 car seems to be a little bit more better than Webster's at the moment. So you have to sit back and think of another way to try and get through as they turn up through Coram once again. So still the gap continues to remain unchanged. You have to wonder, is there anything up Paul Webster's sleeve here, possibly that he can utilise in the last few laps, potentially hoping that Paul Plant uses up his tyres a little bit too much, and hopefully we'll take full advantage of that. Meanwhile, back down with our twin spark leaders. Here's Andrew Bork coming over the crest, down towards Ritchie's once again. Tom Hill is still in second place. No change for third either, although Richard Ford is getting a little bit feisty now behind Simon Cresswell. Through Ritchie's corner once again. Out, down towards Wilson for another lap. Bork and Hill looking pretty evenly matched, as are Cresswell and Ford. Nice tidy apexes from all four drivers. The perfect line through the 180-degree hairpin. And there in the foreground are our overall leaders, Seeger, Plant and Webster. While Bork and Hill looking pretty static in first and second. The fight for third isn't progressing too much further either, so they've really pulled away as the class of the field here this weekend. These top four just paired off now in their own separate battles, and so far I have the feeling that in both cases there's just something brewing here in terms of they're not exactly pulling the pin just yet. They're waiting for the prime opportunity to pounce and make a move, particularly Richard Ford, who looks closer than ever for third place, but Simon Cresswell does not get intimidated too easily. He knows how to defend when he needs to. Richard Ford will keep on applying and applying and applying the pressure as best he can. Back through Williams again. Third and fourth, nose to tail, onto the Bentley straight. Now then, what sort of a power advantage does Richard Ford have, if any? He's in the slipstream, a good exit off the right-hander, onto the long straight, down towards Brundle and Nelson. He moves out to the outside and try and make a move here. Can he put himself alongside to get the inside run? He did this on Dave Messenger earlier on. He could try and do it again, but alas, not far enough alongside this time. So Simon Cresswell lives to fight another day. Takes the line perfectly through Nelson, up into the bomb hole. Car just squats down on its suspension through the right-hander, and then through the long right-hander of Coram. You hug the inside line. As you come towards the end of the radius, you have to start trail braking to get the car slowed down for Murray's a very tricky left-hander. Cresswell pushing a little bit too much into the right-hander. A little wide on the exit there of Murray's. So a little too exuberant there from the Australian. Just feeling he has to try and push a little bit harder to sustain the gap between himself and Ford. Back with our overall leaders. Seeger comfortably leads, but it's side by side for second again. Here we go once more. Plant and Webster nose to tail into Brundle and then through Nelson, but once again into the braking zone and through the corners. Plant's car is superior through the right-hander up through the bomb hole. And Webster's car, while it's good on the straights, having a quick car on the straight line is not all she wrote, because of course you have to have a good car on the corners, and Webster's car is no slouch in the corners, don't get me wrong, but Plant's car is just a little bit more secure and stable and has a little bit more grip at this point in time. So out of Murray's onto the pit straight, and I'll tell you what, Webster is closer than he's ever been. This is a great chance now for the 66 to pull alongside. Look at the power advantage now on the straight. Paul Webster not even in the slipstream for 1 second longer than he had to. Down towards Ritchie's corner, into the right-hander, turning his way through, and Paul Webster up to second overall and into the Power Trophy lead. But Paul Plant's not done yet. Flashing the headlights down towards the hairpin at Wilson's. They'll turn in almost side by side. Plant takes the outside line looking for the cutback, but Paul Webster has the line covered. I think they're coming up to lap the Spider, the Silver Spider of Louise West in the 43. There's Graham Seeger. There's Louise West in the background. One of her first weekends of the season. Good to have her out in the championship. And another different car, of course. There's two Spiders in the field. The other one being piloted by Nick Anderson, the number 19, the bright yellow car. And Louise West keeps offline, well out of the way. Good driving, Louise. Well done. It's good observation from her to let both of the faster cars through. So out of Agostini's, up towards Hamilton's. And Paul Webster now is showing that now he has the clear track in front of him. He's the one that can rule the roost. I wonder possibly if Paul Plant will have anything to say about that, and if he can possibly start to make a comeback. So we'll wait with bated breath then as they come through the right-hander at Williams. Again, you can see Plant's car has that slight advantage in the corners. Now on board with Webster, and you can see he's looking in the rearview mirror. He's thinking, where is Paul Plant? Where is he? Where's he going to go? Left or right? Inside or outside? He puts his car right in the middle of the circuit because he knows that Paul Plant is going to come after him, and he will come into Brundle and Nelson. Nothing in the first part, nothing in the second part. Over the curb. That's the perfect racing line, but again, Webster doesn't feel too comfortable, and rightfully so, because Paul Plant is right there and ready to pounce to take full advantage of any mistake, and he's flashing the headlights. He's using the classic distraction technique. He wants to try and put Paul Webster off to find any opportunity, any small advantage to snatch the Power Trophy win back again. Back into Coram, back into Brundle and Murray's once again. Lots of speed taken through the corner from Webster. Somehow got the car stopped for the apex. I'm actually pretty impressed. And of course, as we remember, down the pit straight, as we start the last lap of the race here at Snetterton in race 2, Paul Webster's car is better in a straight line. Now the next car they've got to try and lap, which Graham Seeger has already cleared, is John Griffiths in the 13. That's the 147, there it is. Now I wonder, is that going to be a factor as Paul Webster goes up to lap him? Nice and clean up the inside. John Griffiths gives them a very wide berth. I'm not getting involved in any of this, says John. But well done from him. That's good driving also, to be well observed. And respecting the blue flags and the faster drivers. Now then, through Palmer. Is there anything left that Paul Plant has? Little wiggle on the exit there. Just saw the car move around a little bit as the camera tracks with him down towards Agostini. Now, has Paul Webster got this sewn up, or is Paul Plant going to come back for more? Well, so far on Agostini, he seems to have got it done. A little wide on the exit of Agostini, though. Took a little bit too much speed in his over-exuberance to hold on. Back through Hamilton's. And Paul Plant may not be done here, up towards Oggie's. Again, he's got the headlights on. He wants to try and put himself into Webster's mirrors, and I wonder possibly if he can get a good run off of Oggie's and through Williams, there could be a chance in the last few corners he could snatch the victory in the class. So onto the Bentley straight for the final time then. Webster leads the Power Trophy from Paul Plant. There's Graham Seeger. He looks pretty comfortable to win the race. Once again, had to pick his way through the first couple of cars in the early stages, but again, as it was in race 1, once he got through, he was virtually unchallenged, which is good to see. Through the right-hander at the bomb hole. No change just yet. Up through Coram. Car holding as firm and steady as you like. It's exactly how he likes it. Up through Coram, into Murray's for the second time. get ready for a double here at Snetterton on the 300 circuit. Out of the final corner, Seeger punches the throttle up towards the checker flag. He will make it a perfect 2 from 2 on the 300 circuit at Snetterton. Seeger wins the second race in the modified class, and in the background that's a change for second place and the Power Trophy lead, because it was a different order after the corner. That was Paul Plant ahead of Paul Webster. We won't see them across the line, but Paul Plant was ahead of Paul Webster. So what happened there in the final couple of corners? Well, we'll see in the results. But the final result is Graham Seeger that wins. Paul Plant does get second from Paul Webster. Then the two puntos of Chris and Simon McPhee. But Andrew Bork, Tom Hill, Simon Cresswell and Richard Ford complete the top 9, with Ian Brookfield completing in the top 10 and third in Power Trophy. Then Tideman, Messenger, Inman, Chilton, Anderson, Griffiths and West complete the 17 cars that made the finish. Ron Davidson the only non-finisher. Another amazing race at Snetterton. And here's Jake once again with the winners down in pit lane.
Graham Seeger, your GTV, absolutely brilliant, and again, in absolutely fantastic song all weekend.
Yeah, the 147's been absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's been really good fun to drive it. It's a shame there weren't more modified class here today, but there you go. It's a credit to Peak Alpha. It's an absolutely fantastic car, fantastic engine. And
you really get the opportunity to open up the taps in this on the long straights as well.
Yeah, but you also hang on the brakes as well at the end, which is hard work. Yeah, yes, it's good. Yeah.
Brilliant, nice way to get the double, well done.
Thank you very much.
Paul Plant, fantastic victory in the class as well, and second overall. You must be quite happy with that.
Over the moon, actually, yeah. I owned the car 5 years, first time I've raced it in the UK. Racing against Paul, who's for the first time in a new car as well. We had a great battle, it was really good. Really, really enjoyed it.
And Paul Webster alongside as well. Really exciting stuff from you, and a good battle right to the death with you two, swapping positions all the way through the race.
Yeah, it just got me at the end. I think experience showed there. I had the legs on him down the straight, but he was much quicker than me through the corners. But it was a great race. We did go backwards and forwards, but he got me sort of midway, and he kept there for a long while. But I got him in the end down the straight, but I couldn't stay ahead of him. Too good for me.